In every believer's life, there comes a moment, a night of uncertainty, a path of loneliness, a season of wandering, where God speaks in dreams more powerful than words. Jacob, the son of Isaac, once walked that road, banished, hunted, alone. But under the stars of an empty field, he would witness heaven itself. This is not just a story of an ancient man. This is the moment where heaven opened for him, and perhaps for you too. The sun set slowly over the tents of Isaac, casting golden rays over the encampment. Inside a modest tent of woven cloth and goat skins, aged Isaac sat upon a low mat, his beard long and white, his eyes clouded but soul clear. He beckoned Jacob to come near, the son of promise, chosen over Esau. Jacob, humble and quiet, knelt at his father's feet. His tunic was simple, his sandals dusty from labor. Isaac laid his trembling hand upon Jacob's head. "You shall not marry a woman of Canaan," he said. "Go to Paddan Aram, to the house of Bethel, your mother's father. Take a wife from the daughters of Laban." As morning dawned, Jacob prepared to leave. He slung the leather satchel over his shoulder, kissed his mother Rebekah goodbye, and turned toward the unknown hills of the north. Behind him, his brother Esau nursed a burning grudge, his heart hardened with wrath over the stolen blessing. Jacob walked alone, a pilgrim carrying both his father's blessing and a hidden fear. But unseen to him, heaven watched. As evening fell, Jacob came upon a barren place near the ancient city of Luz. Weary from walking, he gathered a smooth stone and laid it beneath his head. The stars emerged, vast and numberless above him. Sleep overcame him. And behold, in the vision of night, Jacob saw a ladder appeared, not made by hands, but by the breath of heaven. It stood upon the earth and stretched beyond the stars. He saw angels ascending and descending. Their robes shimmered like lightning, their faces full of purpose. They moved without sound, like wind upon water. The ladder wasn't just a path for angels. It was a bridge, a connection between a wandering man and a faithful God. And then, at the top of the ladder, the heavens parted. The Lord stood above it, not in form that could be described, but clothed in glory, fire, and light. A voice echoed from eternity, "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham and Isaac, the land on which you lie. I give it to you and to your descendants. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, spreading to the west and east, to the north and south. Through you, all families of the earth shall be blessed." The voice continued, "Behold, I am with you. I will keep you wherever you go and bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you." The dream began to fade. The ladder vanished into the clouds, but the promise burned brighter than ever in Jacob's soul. Jacob awoke, breath sharp in his chest. His eyes darted to the sky, now just a pale dawn. The ladder was gone, the angels vanished, yet the presence of God still stirred the air. He sat up slowly, trembling. His face shone with wonder, fear, and something deeper, reverence. "Surely," he whispered, "the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it." Jacob stood and looked around the barren land, and suddenly it was no longer barren. This was holy ground. He took the stone he had laid beneath his head, lifted it upright and poured oil over it, a sacred act of worship and memory. He named that place Bethel, house of God. Though it had been nothing but rocks and wind, heaven had touched it. Jacob lifted his eyes to the sky, and there he made a vow. "If God will be with me and keep me on this journey and give me bread to eat and garments to wear and bring me back to my father's house in peace, then the Lord shall be my God." His words echoed over the rocks. Heaven had made a covenant, and now Jacob would answer. As the sun lifted higher, Jacob pressed forward. The wilderness ahead looked the same, but something had changed. He was not just a man fleeing danger anymore. He was now a man marked by heaven. With each step, he carried a promise, not just for himself, but for a nation unborn. As Jacob walked, his mind returned to his father Isaac's trembling voice. "May God give you the dew of heaven, the fatness of the earth, and nations bow to you." Those words had once been part of deception, but now they were prophecy. And Jacob, the unlikely heir, was becoming the chosen vessel. The journey was long, and Jacob was alone, but no longer empty. The silence of the desert was no longer silence. It was filled with the whisper of God's promise. Every grain of sand beneath his feet was sacred ground. Jacob remembered the words, "I am with you," not just in dreams, but in dryness, in distance, in every danger. He whispered prayers as he walked. His faith no longer borrowed, it was becoming his own. And he began to speak to God, not as the God of Isaac, but as his God. As he paused at a hilltop, Jacob looked back at the lands behind him. He imagined his children, thousands of them, walking those hills. He saw tents stretching into the horizon, sons, daughters, tribes of strength and worship. The dream was no longer just of ladders and angels, it was a vision of a people shaped by God. In the silence, Jacob remembered his mother's voice. "Go, my son, flee and may God watch over you." The voice echoed like wind through the rocks. She had sent him away in fear, but her prayers had followed him. Jacob remembered what God said, "I am the Lord, the God of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac." Now he understood. The God of the past had become the God of his future. This was not a story Jacob was escaping. It was a story he was becoming. Weary, Jacob stopped beneath an olive tree. He drank from a nearby spring, and his heart slowed. There was peace now, not from the absence of trouble, but from the presence of God. He rested not in fear, but in faith. Though the dream had ended, the ladder still remained in his soul. A divine bridge had been lowered. Heaven had reached down, not just to Jacob, but to all who believe. The God of ladders was the God of grace. At dawn, Jacob stood once more, his legs still sore, his feet dusty, but his soul reborn. He was no longer just a son or a fugitive. He was now a man of the promise. The desert hadn't broken him, it had built him. The God of his fathers was now the God of his calling. The God of Jacob was not confined to temples or mountaintops. He had spoken in the wilderness and made a ladder between eternity and dust. Heaven had found its footing in a broken man with a willing heart. Jacob the deceiver was being remade. His past, stained by trickery, was now being rewritten by truth. Not because he earned it, but because God chose him anyway. Every step carried echoes of heaven. The angels had returned, but their presence still lingered. Somewhere behind the veil, heaven watched Jacob, not with judgment, but with hope. And Jacob made a vow, "If God will be with me and keep me, then the Lord shall be my God." A man once unsure, now certain, not because he held God, but because God held him. He named that place Bethel, House of God, not because it had walls or altars, but because God had met him there. And where God meets us, it becomes holy. From dust to stars, from deception to destiny, from fear to faith. Jacob's dream was not just about a ladder. It was about a God who steps down and lifts us up. And that ladder still stands today, not seen with eyes, but known by faith. In Jesus, heaven came down. The promise to Jacob became a path for us, a bridge over brokenness, a stairway to salvation. Like Jacob, we walk dusty roads, unsure, unworthy, undone. But God speaks still, in dreams, in silence, in scripture, and in every heart willing to believe. Jacob awoke, changed, and you? The same God waits. The ladder is still here. Will you climb? Have you ever felt God speak when you least expected it? Like the video if you have, and drop a comment sharing your moment of faith. Thanks for watching.